Well, on this adventure, we're going to find this old ghost town. Now, it was cut off from civilization many years ago. There's a few stories to be told, and there's a lot of places and a lot of things to see there. So come and join us on this next adventure.
G'day, my name's Jamie Hazelden and I've been travelling this great country for many years, and what I want to share with you is the great places that I've been to and the places that you can only imagine of getting to. I want to show you and introduce to you some of the colourful characters, sit round a campfire and reminisce and talk about the journey and the places that we're going to go to. So come along with me as I share this journey with you.
Proudly supported by and powered by Custom Lithium. So you wonder how it became a ghost town. Well, it looks like what really happened was in about 1947, Alban bought the property. He had mining experience with the whole family. Now, in 1956, he still hadn't done nothing with the mining side of things, but the water board was moving in because they wanted to create this dam. And it wasn't till 1956 that they finished completion on it. And then some 4 years later, he sold it to his daughter, Val. And then Val kept the town going in a small way, hence the ghost town side of things. But when they put the water through and created the dam, and that creating the issue of cutting it off from Sydney. So then that only left it open to the western side of the Blue Mountains. And you could only get here through the Geelong stock route. One way in, one way out. The stock route track on the way into Yerranderie town is about 70 kilometres, and it's all unsealed, and there's a few water crossings along the way. The track so far is pretty awesome. It's pretty smooth. It's whether it's been graded or not, I don't know, but it's not too bad. There is a few washouts along the way. There is a few bumps here and there, but nothing you couldn't do with a four-wheel drive with just a standard suspension. So a good set of tyres, and you'll get through here no worries at all. There's some steep terrain along the way, and it's quite narrow with a lot of weaving around the corners. You know, you want to be mindful, so take your time, because oncoming traffic, you're going to have to pull over to the side to let each other go past. And again, like I always say, make sure you got your lights on, just to give them that helping hand of a bit of a warning. Well, welcome to the old ghost town of Yerranderie. Now, this is a town from 1803. Now, you don't get to see too many of these sort of places still around, and especially having a look around some of these old houses and shacks, amazing. What was interesting was this was the old post office, and that's where it all originated, the post office. From the beginnings, they called it the Candlebox Post Office, and it closed down, reopened, closed down a number of times before it went into the big one. Now, the big one didn't actually close until 1958. Well, this place was discovered in 1802 by a Frenchman. He was travelling from Natai to Yerranderie. He wrote a book on exploring the interior of New South Wales.
These documents recorded his encounters with First Nation people, and including the first account of the brush-tailed rock wallaby, noted during his attempt to scale Tenali Peak.
You know, I really love having a look at how these places are put together. You know, they used whatever they could find, and you just check out the footings of how they were done, and just the way that all the wood was cut, and just how it's wood, timber, tin, and then it's moved from one place to the next place to fix up another place, and it's just great. But just to have this preserved like this is pretty awesome. You know, I always find it interesting how they put what I call chicken wire up in the tops of the roof corners and edges and all along to stop all the rodents and everything from getting into there. My old house, I got a 1940s old Queenslander, and it's got the same sort of thing. You know, they've actually tucked it all in with the chicken wire so nothing can get up in there. It's pretty cool. So who can tell me why the bottles have such a big groove in the bottom of them? Because they're all like it in the olden day bottles. I've always wondered why. Who knows that? Comment below. Now, could it be that they use these bottles for hinges? Look at that. As you spin that round, it just sits in there perfectly. And then they just got a bit of angle up there for a gate. So cool. Something that's quite interesting, in 1870 they found silver here, but it wasn't until they got some roads in, and John Bartlett, well, he got a little mining crew together and started mining silver in 1899.
For the British Protestant owners, the mines brought 15 years of prosperity, but for the mostly Irish Catholic workers, life was tough.
After opening and closing a couple of times, they moved out of the Candlebox post office and moved into this bigger one right here. Now, there was still a few changes of hands and whatnot with the post offices, but then in 1958 is when they finally closed the post office here and they turned it into a lodge so people could come and stay here. Now, as the town grew, the convenience of everything grew as well. Having a bank here, having shops here, even round the corner we got a bakery. You know, there was a butcher's shop. There was a growth in this whole town.
And the population peaked at 2,200 people, and by 1907, everything was changing.
You know, this old butcher's block, it's had a fair bit of use over the years. You can actually see where they've put like a resin or a bog of some kind down in there to fill where it's cracked up and whatnot. And as you can see, it's been ringed around it to hold it together so it doesn't break apart. You know, back in the day, they might not have got the old saw cut properly, but the legs could adjust to that, as long as they got the top flat for chopping up the meat. But it's I'd love to get one of these and have it sitting in my old hut. So cool. Here at Yerranderie, they've got the private town, but there is a campground here as well. And at this campground, they've got toilets, hot showers, all those amenities. So it's quite good. And there's so much to see and do here. And over the other side is where they've got the government campground. Speaking of that, I'm going to go and do a bit more exploring before we go and head to camp.
With just a short walk through the town centre, you'll find the town's mine site.
The Silver Peak mine started in 1904. It then started to deplete when World War I came, because there were so many deaths on the front line, they started to lose the workers out there. Something that was quite unique to here was the safety brake. Now, Frank Hocking, he designed that safety brake back in the day. But at the same time, in the 1960s, they tried to get the mine going again. These old boilers, I've seen them everywhere from Tasmania to Cape York, but it's so incredible. This mine, Silver Peak Mine, did 20 tonne of silver back in the day. The old water tank, it has so many uses. This one is full of concrete and it's wrapped with steel cord. Now, also in this mine, they got 20 tonne of lead and 563 ounces of gold. What didn't help was when Broken Hill went on strike. Now, the Yerranderie mob were all joined to the same union and they went on strike as well. And that strike went from 1919 to 1920. Now, that was all up an 18-month period, which didn't help the mining of the area. You know, you look around this place and you can see how much infrastructure was put into the place over the years and the time that people have been here, because it's just bits and pieces everywhere and scattered through. After the expansion of the mine, it got to a peak of 2,200 people out here. That's why they had to then build a police station, a courthouse, and the place just started outgrowing. Well, in 1927, the mine was on the breach of bankruptcy, and it wasn't too much longer after that, in 28, that it was a lockout. It was locked down, no more work commenced, it was bankrupt, it was finished. You know, it's quite interesting, you know, I'm just looking back at the place and how hard it would have been back in those days. You know, one, it can get cold here in winter, but at the same time, I'm looking at how they've made the bag wall out of this, out of what they'd say limestone or whatnot, and they've made it in the Hessian sack, so the water would have filled up in there, and when it overflowed, it just dropped down into here and then flow down there. It's quite interesting when you see these sort of places and you look at how old they are, how long they've lasted, but you can see the erosion on the whole place.
Back in its day, this was a big operation for a small community, and today the remains are still here, offering a glimpse into the past for anyone curious enough to come and explore. The town was spread out and would have covered approximately 5 kilometres. Now there's a story that when the church was first built on the 2nd of April in 1911, people travelled from all across the countryside to be there. On the morning of the very first service, the little town came alive as family, miners and settlers all gathered to mark the occasion. And to this day, local families still make their way here for Sunday morning mass, continuing the tradition that began all those years ago. You know, I think that's pretty awesome.
It's really hard to imagine. This was the Silver Hotel behind me, which burnt down in around 1914. In 1915, it was soon rebuilt again. But by the time it got to around the 1950s, it wasn't worthwhile having the license because they'd flooded the place with the dam. So then they sold on the license in 1955. To imagine that was a hotel behind us. Now, I think it got burnt down twice. It's really hard to imagine, you know, when you look at these places. This was the courthouse, this was the police station. You can see that there was a fireplace externally over there, but over here was where the housing was, and they started the police station there. Now the police station went from 1906 all the way to 1940. Then they moved it on from here, they moved it to another place, and they had a jail cell that was portable. They called it the dog box. And that's the jail that they then moved from this place to the next place. Pretty cool. Well, what an eventful day we've had today exploring around this old town. Anyway, it's starting to cloud over a bit and we thought we'd get back to camp because it's cold, freezing cold, get the fire all going and have a bit of a cook up. So just going to do some curried sausages tonight. I thought, why not do it on the fire? The great part about this place I've really enjoyed is these guys come and load you up with wood every day. So we'll have a great night tonight round the fire. As much as it's a bit windy, hopefully the rain holds off, but we'll see how we go.
On tonight's menu, I'm cooking up my daughter's favourite camp meal, curried sausages. Now I've got a few go-to ingredients that makes the dish extra tasty. Sultanas for a bit of sweetness, a spoonful of peanut butter for richness, and of course it wouldn't be curried sausages without the curry and the sausages.
I'm going to chop up some potato now, get that on the boil, and then I'm going to brown my onion, cook up a bit of bacon, and then we'll get the sausages going.
You know, the great thing about camp cooking is there's no right or wrong. You can keep your sausages whole, but I prefer mine chopped up for extra flavour in every bite.
I always find when I'm doing curried sausages, I love to have mashed potato with it. Beautiful.
I'll caramelise the onions until golden and sweet and let the bacon cook partly through, just enough to bring out that smoky flavour. Then I'll start adding the rest of the ingredients to the pan. First is the sauce.
You wouldn't believe it. It's hard.
I use what is now frozen coconut cream. Amazing how cold it is down here. That creates that smooth, rich texture to bring it all together. Next, I'll add 2 tablespoons of curry powder
And the sausages. Now I'll just give it a stir up.
and makes curried sausages such a camp classic.
I always like to add a dollop or two of peanut butter.
Then add the sultanas, then it's time to let it simmer so that all the flavours can come together beautifully. Just give it a stir every now and then to make sure nothing sticks to the bottom. Now you can add peas, corn, carrots, whatever you like. That's the best part about a good curry. It's totally up to you and what you've got on hand at the time. Time to dish up, sit back and enjoy the meal. Boy, I hope this warms me up. It's the perfect comfort food after a big day out.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. If I don't say so myself, you know.
What a great night it was last night. With all the firewood provided, I was able to keep the fire going well into the night, and there's still a bit left for the next person, which is always a good feeling when you turn up to a camp and there's firewood there for you.
Well, that's the end of the story here in the old ghost town. We've had an epic time and there's so much information here to learn about, but at the same time, you've got to come and check it out yourself. Have a camp here because it's an awesome camp as well. I hope you've enjoyed the adventure. Make sure you drop a comment down below and I'll catch you on my next one.